Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to this session where we're going to be discussing gender equity and diversity within the quantum community, as well as talk on education as well. So without further ado, I'm going to start the talk on the gender equity and diversity aspects, and I'll be joined by my colleague Lydia Samati Vila in a few moments. So the gender equality, equity, diversity issue is something that's been around for quite some time. And this is one thing that if we're going to be talking about innovation, industry, education, then we need to be starting to think about the whole community. And that's where this discussion has really started and motivation for this activity. So this was actually an activity that started a few years ago, and even our first EQTC conference in Grenoble a couple of years ago, we had our first presentations and discussions. And our motivation was simple. We're going to have this discussion, we need to raise the awareness to get it as a discussion point around the table. And a few people have been helping us with that over the years, and you see them listed here on the left of your screen. And obviously, I'd like to thank them enormously for what has been primarily a volunteer effort. So, as I said, making this a discussion point, but one of the challenges there is that we need to identify what we need to do and what we can do. This is obviously a complex issue in general. But we also need to think about what's happening on an institutional, national and European level in terms of regulations, in terms of where issues lie in these different levels. And that will have a large bearing on how we can organize and get down to doing what we need to get done. So as you're probably well aware, gender equity, diversity, these are universal challenges. It's something that already came up after our first meeting in Grenoble at the EQTC was, is this really relevant for the quantum community? Many people will have experienced no problems and hence see no need for any great effort or activity in addressing what they do not see. So this was indeed where we really started. It was raising awareness, even amongst our own community. We needed to have some data. We needed to know where we are to sort of get going. And that's where we sort of came back to the community and wanted to find out what you are thinking, whether you are having issues, what needs to be done. And so we asked you, is there a gender equity and diversity problem in our community? And we came up with a survey that some of you will have participated in. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you a short video that sort of summarizes these, some of these outcomes and some of these issues that within the community. And then Lydia is going to come back and elaborate a little bit more and give you a few more details and some numbers behind what we found so far. So with that, I'll thank you for your time and I'll leave you with this video, and then Lydia will help you understand a little bit more.
The lack of gender equality is a key issue we are facing within STEM workplaces, including the quantum technologies industry.
We are seeing a lack of women being promoted to senior positions, as well as an underrepresentation of women at conferences.
The Gender Equality Working Group of the Quantum Flagship set up a survey to find out how the community views gender equality to help shape the approach they will take to tackle any issue.
748 members of the international quantum community completed the survey. 59% of respondents were men and 37% were women.
Most respondents view gender inequality as an issue that needs to be tackled. A small minority views the system as offering equal opportunities and do not see the need for any special action.
However, evidence shows that this is not the case.
Participants were asked about gender discrimination within the quantum community. with 50% saying that they had either been discriminated against or witnessed gender discrimination in the last 5 years.
75%.
Okay, so I think there was a little technical problem, and what I'll do is I will be continuing myself now with the presentation, or I don't know if there is a way to restart the video again.
The lack of gender equality is a key issue we are facing within STEM workplaces, including the quantum technologies industry.
We are seeing a lack of women being promoted to senior positions, as well as an underrepresentation of women at conferences.
The Gender Equality Working Group of the Quantum Flagship set up a survey to find out how the community views gender equality to help shape the approach they will take to tackle any issue.
748 members of the international quantum community completed the survey. 59% of respondents were men, and 37% were women.
Most respondents view gender inequality as an issue that needs to be tackled. A small minority views the system as offering equal opportunities and do not see the need for any special action.
However, evidence shows that this is not the case.
Participants were asked about gender discrimination within the quantum community, with 50% saying that they had either been discriminated against or witnessed gender discrimination in the last 5 years.
75% of those, that is 1/3 of total participants, stated that they are discriminated against regularly.
The majority of gender discrimination reported in the survey came in the front of men against women, but it was not the sole form of gender discrimination reported. Furthermore, 17% stated that discrimination came from lack of recognition, and 36% reported sexual harassment in the workplace.
Participants were also asked about unconscious bias, as it is an issue the working group aims to tackle. 84% stated that they were aware of unconscious bias and that it affected their interactions in the workplace.
Hiring processes and evaluations were two key aspects of unconscious bias highlighted by respondents. Also, 20% emphasized a need for outreach activities with younger kids to create a strong equal gender culture from a young age.
Participants also discussed a strong need for gender-based policy in the workplace.
Looking to the future, the survey highlighted the issues that need to be tackled. The survey results also emphasized that equality needs to be taken more broadly, ensuring other discriminated groups are recognized and supported.
Overall, we are in the initial stages of creating an equal workplace, and to make a real impact, we need dedicated action and support from everyone, from individuals to institutions within the quantum technologies community.
My name is Lidia San Martivila. Thank you, Rob, for the introduction before. So as you could hear from Rob and also from the video, gender equality, it's a topic that matters to the community, and it matters a lot. So let's get now a closer look at some of the main questions we asked. As Rob already mentioned, we did this through a survey that we launched during the Helsinki Presidential Quantum event in October 2019, and that we closed in May 2020. We got almost 750 responses, and the way that the questionnaire was set up was so that it would be anonymous. So we couldn't really identify who was saying what. No personal information was asked beyond the gender identification aspect. Regarding the gender, we see that a bit over half of the people that answered the survey were men, and there were like 37% participation by women, and about 50% of people who prefer not to say or that identify with other gender. Regarding the sector and level, there was an overwhelmingly participation by academia. Industry only was about 7% of the responses. This is probably mainly because back then we didn't have a quick quantum industry consortium that we have right now, and that probably for the next survey, it would be much easier to reach out to the industry community at large. But still, within the amount of people that answered, we see that the distribution across at which point in the careers they are was pretty even, and there was a good balance between early stage and later stage in the careers. Regarding the geography, we had actually answers by over 40 different countries, most of them European countries. 70% were people from Germany, from Switzerland, Netherlands, from Spain, and also from France. But in general, there was a very, very strong opinion that gender equality is an important matter. In fact, more than half thought it was either critically important or very important. And in which points do people identify gender equality? They say it's a political matter, it's a cultural matter, that it affects all of us, that it would impact the way that we do research and our production. And that includes also many aspects that go beyond the gender equality, a number of people in one gender or another, like life-work balance policies, unconscious bias views, etc. So it's really a rather complicated matter. Gender discrimination is real and recurrent, as we could already see from the video. More than half of the respondents had said that they had experienced or witnessed gender discrimination within the last 5 years. And what is really worrying about this is that within those, 3/4 said it was a recurrent situation. So basically, we are facing here a situation in which about 40% of the people are recurrently in a gender discrimination situation, either themselves or someone else they know. What is also an important point here to know is that this view was more or less the same independently if the people were in the early stages of their careers or in the later stages of their career. And also that in a much smaller proportion, but gender discrimination affected not only women, but also other genders. And that also in a small proportion, but the gender discrimination was inflicted by all genders, especially men, but also other genders. And not just because of, not just people, but also gender discrimination, institutional gender discrimination has been viewed as something that it's happening to a certain degree. One of the points that people already pointed out, it was the importance of unconscious bias. So we asked people if they knew what unconscious bias was. Most of the people, 85%, knew what it was. 15% either didn't know what it was or didn't think it was something that was important. And within those that said that they knew what unconscious bias was, they said that it impacts mainly our interaction with our peers and also how the way that we carry out research. And all this also impacts, in general, very strongly the way we hire and the way we manage our teams. And regarding this, I want to bring the attention to the Gender Equality and Unconscious Bias in Research and Science workshop that it's going to happen tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. And that it's going to tell us a little bit about how unconscious bias operates, how it affects your decision-making process, and how can we develop strategies to recognize and mitigate unconscious bias in order to build diverse teams that deliver the most innovative science. With this, what I want to say is there is still a lot to be done. We're going to be performing regular surveys in the future. We're going to be also opening the work towards other diversity dimensions. And what it is really important is that already many things are being done at the local and institutional level. So if you are doing something, we want to know and hear about initiatives and projects all over Europe that work towards diversity and towards inclusion. So please stay in touch. Thank you so much.
Okay, so maybe I can continue. So I'm Chiara Macchiavello from the University of Pavia in CNR, Italy, and I would be happy to tell you about the education aspects in the Quantum Flagship on behalf of the coordination and support actions QFlag and QTEdu. So let me start with reminding you what has been emphasized in the strategic research agenda, where it was already identified that the creation of a learning ecosystem embracing the concepts of quantum physics at all levels, so from school up to the working environment, is required for a quantum-ready workforce and a well-informed society. So the main goals of quantum education in Europe are, as identified already in the strategic research agenda, are to create an ecosystem of a skilled quantum workforce, to work against the shortage of quantum experts, especially in the engineering sector, and also to achieve a well-informed society with knowledge and attitudes towards the acceptance of quantum technologies. So these are these long-term goals. And so in education in quantum technologies, various audiences have been identified, and so that education and training initiatives are necessary for these sectors. So you see, first is the university audience, which comprises of students at bachelor, master, PhD level, and where the need is to develop minor and master programs for quantum technologies, especially for students coming from outside of the physics area, so typically engineers, computer scientists, chemists, and so on. Then there is the industry workforce, where the need is to develop programs for further training at professional level. We have then high school education, where the aim is to develop new curriculum recommendation and strategies for teaching quantum physics in high schools, by exploiting also this new approach that comes from quantum information and quantum technologies that can give very also effective teaching strategies and paths. And then there is the outreach session, where the aim is to reach citizens and to attract future university students. So in all these audiences, for all these goals, it's important to have a synergy between academic researchers, education experts, and industrial partners. So really to create this ecosystem that embraces all these stakeholders. Sorry, okay. So these tasks are mainly taken care of by the QTEdu CSA, which is the currently running coordination and support action on quantum education, on quantum technologies education. And this is a project that started last year in September and will run until August next year. And in order to start the path toward these goals, these are the lines of action where the CSA is currently involved. So we have community building and support, scale up quantum education in Europe by means of pan-European pilot programs, to develop a common language for quantum technologies, competencies and skills, and to collect and share resources. So let me just show you the team that is currently working on this. So there are 4 different partners. One is CNR, which is coordinating this action, and these are the current and former members of the team. There is the Technical University of Braunschweig in Germany, Technical University of Delft in the Netherlands, and Aarhus University in Denmark. So let me just tell you a bit more, very briefly, an overview of what has been done, is being done in this along these lines. So the first is building the quantum education community, where the goal is to facilitate the formation of dedicated community networks involving all the key stakeholders that we mentioned before. And here the activity is devoted to the creation of 5 working groups that are active in different topics. So the first is about education and outreach in primary and secondary schools. The second, education initiatives in higher education. The third, in lifelong learning and workforce training. Then we have a 4th working group in which is comprising educational research in the areas of these first 3 working groups. And the last one is about equality, equity and inclusion for quantum technology educational initiatives. So these groups were formed in February this year. Then there were a series of meetings along these last months, with the aim of achieving at the end of this project, so in summer next year, a roadmap for a pan-European workforce. So this helped a lot in establishing the community. So here you have an idea of the community map. So this is basically a screenshot taken in August this year. You can see that there are more than 300 members active in this, spread along many different countries. Then the activity of these working groups was vital also for the formation of a pilot project. So the goal here is to create and coordinate pilot programs, facilitating pan-European synergy between established efforts. So these pilot projects are at the pan-European level in this topic. So a multidisciplinary master in quantum technologies, a multidisciplinary minor in quantum technologies, industry initiatives and retraining, outreach and engagement, learning material for secondary school. So these were the topics, and so 25 different countries were involved in this, with 129 members, and at the moment we have 11 pilot projects that have just been launched. Okay, the third line was the one about the competence framework. So the goal here was to create a competence framework that maps out the landscape of possible capabilities in quantum technology. So it's a mapping of competencies and skills that can be really useful to develop and design further educational programs. And this was done by a 3-stage Delphi study with a questionnaire sent to a broad range of relevant stakeholders and expert interviews. And we are happy that we already have a first version of this program that is currently available here. And while it's actually continuously updated, so new versions also will come out. And then the last line of action is about infrastructure, and to give a dedicated website with an online repository. So the aim here is to collect information that is already there to share and use. At the moment, we have 4 different databases, one on education programs that includes programs for school, undergraduate, industry, and so on, materials and tools for teaching and outreach, a job database on internships at companies ready to host students, and one on events. And here you have an idea of how the various entries in the databases are basically organized in terms of program and courses type. So here the message is, if you have some education activity, please submit your program or course to the website so that it can be collected in the databases. And let me mention some education events organized within the flagship. So the first one that I would like to mention, because it was actually very successful, is took place in the European Quantum Week last year, November last year, where a first pan-European education session for secondary school students and general public was organized, with an introductory presentation of quantum technologies in the native language in 23 different countries. And it saw the participation of about 9,000 students all over Europe. So it was really very well received. And in some countries, there were also some follow-up activities starting from this. And another big event that is being organized and launched is the World Quantum Day, organized by quantum scientists all over the world, aimed at the general public. The first edition will be on the 14th of April next year. Let me conclude now by emphasizing what are the next appointments within the EQTC conference regarding education aspects. So you see that we have quite a dense program on Wednesday and Thursday. So there are some workshops devoted to activities, and also to give more details of some aspects that are already presented, like the pilot projects. And while on Thursday, the last initiative will be a session with invited talks and panel discussion on education in quantum technology. So I really encourage who is interested in this in following also these other activities. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Chiara. And I would also thank Lydia as well for her talk earlier. So we have at least one question for the moment. Please don't hesitate to throw a couple more in there. We have a few minutes. The first question is from Mira Deschamps, and it says, thank you for your insights. Can you draw best practices from your own career path on how to motivate female talent to start an education in STEM, especially quantum tech? So I think this addresses maybe a little bit of both talks. So maybe just on the, let's say, the gender side, I would say there's multiple things to think about in terms of this, that tie also into some of the education constraints and challenges, is that if we're thinking about young people, we need to think about local initiatives that are language specific generally. And that's one of the reasons we want to hear from people on a local sort of level, national level, to sort of hear what they're doing and help coordinate these maybe across Europe or across different countries, grouping of countries, and that way we could sort of, you know, not repeat the work, because the other option is that we ask the already overworked female population of the quantum community to do even more outreach activities. And I think it's better to leverage what's already happening at so many places. Chiara, did you have anything to add on that, just purely on the education side, maybe? We've lost Chiara. So maybe the other aspect I would touch on that is that that's one element in what we saw. We saw that there were problems. You know, we were looking primarily at the, let's say, early stage researchers all the way through to senior researchers, and we see even if we're getting women into, you know, bachelor courses, engineering courses, the retention rate is what is still problematic. So while on the one hand it would be good to get more and more young women into quantum, we also need to work much harder on keeping them there. There's another question. How can one learn more about the event on the 14th of April 2022? Chiara has left the building, actually. So I would say for the event on in April 22, the World Quantum Day, the best thing would be to check on the QTEdu website. This is the main portal for everything that's happening in the quantum flagship initiative, and there will be regular updates and information about this event as it approaches. I don't think, unless there's last question coming, I think we've just about done it and our time is just about up. So with that, I would encourage you both on the education front and the gender diversity equity issue that if you're interested or have something happening that could be interesting for us to know about, or we can help you with, to get in touch with us. And with that, I'll thank you for your time and close the session, and look forward to seeing you in some of the other sessions throughout the week. So thank you. Bye.